It's been a little bit since we talked about Bun, the alternative bundler, runtime, package installer, and all the things we need in JavaScript. And on one hand, that's because there hasn't been much to talk about, but on the other hand, it's because we haven't had a major release, and that just changed with Bun 1.3. Obviously, we're going to talk about all the things that make Bun 1.3 a great release, but more importantly, I want to talk about what this means for the future of Bun, because not only have I spent a lot of time playing with this release and digging into the notes, not only do we have Alistair, one of the lead contributors, just hanging out in chat, I also was lucky enough to attend the Bun 1.3 launch event and actually was the only speaker alongside Jared. He hit me up right before it asking, hey, do you want to host a panel? I was like, yeah, sure. Had no idea by panel, he meant me asking him questions to a giant audience of people. From that public chat, as well as from private conversations I've had with Jared, I'm starting to get an idea of where he thinks the future of Bun is, but also want to take advantage of my audience to lightly pressure him in the right direction. So this will be fun. We'll cover everything that happened in 1.3, everything that they're thinking about, and where I personally think they should be steering towards. Quick disclosures, Bun doesn't pay me. I did invest in them though. Someone's got to pay. Quick word from today's sponsor. Security is more important than ever now that there are so many bots traversing the web, breaking everything from CAPTCHAs to firewalls. It's so important to secure your stuff. Sadly, basically every tool built to make it easy to secure your stuff isn't really built for developers. They're all built for IT admins and people who are behind the scenes clicking buttons on dashboards. I don't want to spend a bunch of time in a dashboard when I'm configuring my stuff. I want it in my code, so it's way easier for us to understand how stuff actually works. That's why I'm so blown away with ArcJet. Like, seriously, I cannot believe nothing like this existed before. Believe me, I hunted. I hunted so hard that I ended up investing in ArcJet a year ago before their product was even ready because I was that hyped on what they're building. Well, what are they building? To put it simply, they made it way easier to add security to your web applications. Here's a basic example in their quick start for Next.js. You create the ArcJet client, you set up rules. In this case, we're detecting bots. So if we don't want bots to be able to search our site, here we go. But what about search engines? We want to make sure our site can be indexed, right? Cool. In the allow list, we add category : search engine, and that's it. This is Next.js specific with the create middleware, so let's find a more basic example of something that isn't quite so nexty. Here we have rate limiting done through tokenization. So we have a token bucket here that has a user ID tracker, that's how it identifies which users used which tokens, a refill rate, which is how much do we want to add to their bucket every amount of time, the interval, which is 10 seconds. So every 10 seconds, they get 5 tokens added to their bucket, and they get up to 10. Oh man, I wish we had this when T3 chat was made. If you want to add a firewall, it's super easy to do that as well. You add a shield to your rule set, and you add it on top of the request with aj.protect, and now you're done. It's that easy. If you want to protect your infra and your costs from getting spiked out of control by all these AI bots around the internet, there's no better time to set things up securely, and there's no better way to do it than soydev.link/arcjet. Let's dive in.
Bun is an incredibly fast, all-in-one JavaScript toolkit for building, running, and testing JavaScript and TypeScript applications. 2 years ago, we released Bun 1.0, and since then, Bun's monthly downloads have grown over 47 times to now over 5 million monthly downloads. Every part of Bun.
Just wanted to comment on the fact that this already feels so much more human than their previous videos. They went a little hard down the Apple copy path before. This feels much better. I'm saying that now because if it changes, I want to call it that it changed.
5 million monthly downloads. Every part of Bun is designed to be and to feel fast, from the runtime to the package manager to the test runner and to the bundler. And today, we're introducing Bun 1.3. We're pushing the limits of hardware performance, and we're making building with JavaScript faster and simpler. We've taken all the feedback from teams running Bun at scale. And in Bun 1.3, we've made improvements that make Bun even more stable, more compatible, and more production ready than ever before.
That was cringe. That was cringe. I only just give you guys edit feedback here. Send me these earlier. There's a couple little things you can touch up.
If you're migrating your production workloads to Bun, send us an email.
Bun is pushing the boundaries of what's possible with modern hardware and JavaScript. In Bun 1.3, we integrated JavaScript Core's garbage collector directly with Bun's event loop. This yields a 100 times reduction in idle CPU usage and a 40% reduction in idle memory usage for common production workloads. Lower idle CPU and memory usage means reduced hosting costs.
But Bun isn't just about performance. Bun is designed to be a drop-in replacement for Node.js. And since Bun 1.2, we've doubled down on Node.js compatibility. We've added an additional 800 new tests from the Node.js test suite that run on every single commit of Bun. And along the way, we contributed dozens.
Honestly, the most impressive thing there is that the GitHub website didn't crash as they scrolled through that many files. Like, GitHub website does not work with large projects.
Of upstream tests to Node.js to improve their test coverage and reliability. If it works in Node and it doesn't work in Bun, then please file a GitHub issue in Bun's repository. It's our job to make sure everything that works in Node also works in Bun.
And adoptability has to extend beyond the bun time. Today in Bun 1.
Did he call it the bun time? You fuckers! I have video evidence of me telling Jared the runtime needs to be called the bun time, and he said no, and now it's in official comms. Bun time. That's what it is. That's what we're calling it. It is now canon. Thank you, Dylan, for being on the right side of history here.
3, we're introducing 2 of the most requested improvements to Bun install. First is seamless migration. Bun now automatically migrates lock files from npm, pnpm, and yarn to Bun's text-based lock file.
I like that he said text-based lock file because it was not a text-based lock file before, and it was very annoying for diffs on Git. It would just, any change to your packages would result in the whole thing being busted. They finally changed the course there, and now it's very nice. I don't know if it diffs as well as PNPM locks do, or PNPM locks naturally diff, and you don't have to blast them out like ever. It's really nice, but I'm curious.
This lets you switch from other npm package managers to Bun install with 0 configuration and keep your resolved dependency versions intact. Second is isolated installs. A common problem in large monorepos is transitive dependencies leaking into packages that don't declare them. These phantom dependencies cause the classic issue where code works on your machine but breaks on others. In Bun 1.3, we're making isolated installs the default, eliminating phantom dependencies and making installs even faster than before. In production-grade monorepos, Bun's isolated installs are over 70 times faster compared to NPM. Bun install is designed to work with existing Node.js projects. Switch from npm, pnpm, or yarn in one single command, Bun install.
My only hesitation here is that Bun's monorepo support and workspace support just isn't quite as good as PNPM's just yet. If you have multiple different packages and multiple different things in a project, Bun just doesn't behave as well. We have tried. It's not quite there. We have reported a lot to Jared. He said he's on it. There's a future where it is. But honestly, personally, I think it would be a lot cooler if the focus in Bun wasn't yet another database connection method. I want better monorepo tools for giant TypeScript projects. I would love for Bun to revolutionize monorepos instead of just installing from a monorepo. And we even have other maintainers here, like Tanner. Give me workspaces and monorepos. Yes, please. Jared, I beg you. Better monorepo support. You guys know what giant code bases look like better than almost anyone. Please fix this. You can do it.
In Bun 1.3, we've added 6 new commands to Bun install. First is Bun update interactive. This command displays all available package versions and helps you choose which dependencies to update.
This is really cool. Other things have it, but I know a lot of people haven't used it or seen it, and it is really nice to have this in Bun directly. I know that in particular, Tanner was very hyped about this.
And helps you choose which dependencies to update. Bun Y tells you why a package is installed by tracing which dependency pulled it in.
Oh, that's actually really useful. Can I use Bun Y to figure out why my life is so hard, or is it only good for packages? Actually, though, very good.
Bun audit checks dependencies for security vulnerabilities, even after they've been installed. Bun info fetches package metadata from Node.js registries, pre-printing the manifest and additional useful information. Bun PM PKG makes it easy to get and set properties in package JSON. And lastly, Bun PM version gives you a simple way to update your package version for a new release.
Okay, hear me out. Actual reason why all of this is so useful, not the interactive part, but everything else we just saw. This makes Bun a really useful tool for agents. If your agent needs to know what's going on with this package, what's the latest version, where'd it come from, who made it, or let's say that you need to add a field to your package JSON, but you don't want to give package JSON edit access to your agent. It's quite common for these vibe coding solutions to hard lock out the agents from accessing certain files in the code base. I know that, for example, with Chef by Convex, they fully locked the agent from being able to edit the schema directly so that they could have their own tool call that does that edit separately. This seems like good starting points for similar things in other tools. If I wanted to make a vibe coding building app and didn't want to edit the package.json and break stuff all the time, I could tell it to only make changes through Bun PM. Really good stuff.
You can now import YAML files in Bun.
More questionable stuff.
This is great for configuration files, GitHub Actions, Kubernetes, and more. YAML imports are powered by Bun's built-in YAML parser, and we've also added support for YAML in hot reloading and Bun build. Bun's built-in SQL API now supports all 3 major relational databases: MySQL, SQLite, and Postgres. Our single SQL API now has automatic SQL injection prevention and drivers for all major relational databases.
It now has SQL injection prevention. Does that mean it didn't before? Does that mean I can go find some Bun 1.2 apps and have some fun? Oh boy. It's also awesome seeing Lydia here. She's a legend. Some of my favorite educational resources come from her in the space. Her video on the event loop is one of the best ever made. But also, I'm on Tanner's side with this. Why do they care so much about things like this? The speed of and the integration of different database connection methods. I'm going to come back to that, Tanner. Don't go anywhere, because I have a lot of thoughts. And a lot of those thoughts are going to use Ryan Carniato as an example, because I think he is the best example of how to think this way and do it right.
Bun now has a built-in Redis client, which means that you can connect to the world's most popular key-value store with 0 dependencies.
Again, feelings. I don't necessarily think this is the best place for them to be spending their time, but we'll talk about why I think that in a little bit. But yes, you now have Redis built into Bun.
It's fast, it's native, and it's as simple as importing Redis from Bun. Just get, set, and go.
Bun 1.3 comes with a big upgrade to Bun stability and reliability. Since 1.2, we've resolved over 2,000 GitHub issues, and have seen rapidly growing production adoption. Thousands of companies bet on Bun as their default, from small startups to Fortune 500 enterprises, and even the world's leading AI companies. But don't just take our word for it. Here's what companies building with Bun have to say.
When we started Quad Code, we looked at a bunch of options for runtime. Bun was the winner hands down.
I did not know Boris would be in this. Oh boy. Boris, a very smart, hardworking person that has said a couple things that I think are unforgivable about Claude Code and the way that Anthropic thinks. Good dude, smart, means well. I have feelings.
It starts in like 3 milliseconds, and Python was like 15 times slower. For a CLI tool, that's the difference between an awesome user experience and something that feels sluggish.
Also worth noting, the other really good CLI for agentic coding stuff that's open source that we talk about here, OpenCode, also built with Bun. And sadly, my other favorite, Codex, when trying to make it as performant and easy to bundle as possible, didn't hear my warning and ended up choosing Rust. Anyways.
We use Bun's fast WebSocket server to efficiently publish millions of image generation notifications daily. Our production build time also went down, from minutes to milliseconds.
At Railway, we built our AI functions experience on Bun, and it's allowed users or Claude to deploy code in less than 1 second. And once it's deployed, it is crazy cheap. When customers switch to Bun, they save 60% or more on car insurance, on compute costs. And that's all before the changes in 1.3.
Jake did very good with this. Huge fan of Railway. You'll probably be seeing more of them on the channel soon as well.
One of the best parts of Bun is its support for the Node.js ecosystem and its built-in tools. In Bun 1.3, all of the helpful APIs like S3 support, MySqueal, and the Bun shell work wherever you need them.
Did he really just do the prime reference? Tisk tisk. You can take the man out of the triangle, but you cannot take the triangle out of the man.
Including in frameworks like Next.js.
At Replit, Bun powers performance-critical infrastructure that concurrently connects hundreds of thousands of users and their agents to their containers. This enables any TypeScript developer to ship performant backend code.
Bun is fast and cute. Bun runs and builds RioOS, Baby Cursor, and all my new ideas with Cursor Agent.
I've been chatting with Rio here for a while. It's my first time actually seeing his face.
The cute dumpling paired with lightning fast DX just hits different.
We wouldn't have gotten here
That was a really good cut.
without our incredibly active community across Discord, across X, YouTube, and GitHub. Thanks to hundreds of people who contributed to Bun 1.3. And for Bun, this is still just the beginning. To explore everything new, head to bun.com/1.3. To install Bun, visit Bun.
We know how to install Bun. Thank you, Jared. Very good video. So much better than the previous ones. This just feels more human, which is an important thing nowadays more than ever. Made a quick bullet point list of the things we need to talk about from here. We have what they added, what they plan to add, what I think they should add, and the tangent on the database connection stuff, which is probably what we're going to start with. Because that is the thing I have the strongest feelings about here, although I have strong feelings about all of them. Again, bias inclusion here. I am an investor in Bun. I am a friend of Jared's. I really want to see them succeed. But that's why I'm going to be extra harsh on them, because it is more important that they succeed than almost anyone else in the space, because we need them in order for JavaScript to continue improving. So let's talk about the DB connection stuff. Why add SQL to Bun? And a lot of other pieces that are being added indirectly. If only this was a simple thing to answer. I'm going to reference a rant I did before that was talking about React. Let's say this is the problem space that you would run into if you were trying to build Gmail in 1999. You want a really good web-based email app. And this empty box here is all the problems you're going to hit because there is not good tech to do it. Then jQuery comes out and Ajax comes out. And all of a sudden, a huge portion of this problem space gets handled. We'll say everything to the left of this line is solved and everything to the right of this line is still a problem. Suddenly, with the introduction of Ajax, jQuery, whatever else, the problem space gets a lot smaller. We'll say this is when jQuery is introduced, but Ajax a little before then still enables a lot. Honestly, we're being fully honest, like how hard it was to do things pre-Ajax probably looks more like this. Like the amount of things that suddenly became possible when we had the ability to asynchronously update the page, the world changed real fast. So we went from this is impossible, there's too many problems, to okay, a lot of the problems are solved, but we still have things to deal with. Then jQuery happens, and now there's even less. And then eventually we come to React. And it's important to note that this doesn't mean there aren't new problems being introduced. This is meant to show the general problem space and how far we have come along over time. Things like building a Gmail alternative went from literally feeling impossible to do that in the browser to possible but frustrating, possible but you'll have a lot of random bugs throughout with how you're managing your state, to, oh, this isn't too bad anymore. Every time you hit one of these steps, you end up with two weird occurrences. The first is there's a surge in innovation when you hit this moment, where suddenly there's an interest in using what was enabled by this evolution to do new things. That could be creating new libraries. That could be building new apps. That could be pushing the standards. That could be a lot of different things. But one of the two things that happens when one of these monumental, suddenly this thing's easier technologies occurs is a lot of innovation around where that is. The other thing that occurs is a loss of interest in alternatives. When jQuery was prominent, there were tons of popular alternative solutions. They weren't huge, but they were relevant. Things like Knockout, things like MooTools. There was effort to make better things than jQuery, and most of it was kind of ignored. Angular happened, which was really cool. Ember happened, which was a thing. And then React happened, which was hated at first, and then slowly people started to like it. Until React was eventually seen as the solution to a lot of the code-based scaling problems that we were running into as an industry. It made it way easier to compose and scale your architecture and your actual code across a larger team and larger amounts of code being written. But this also incentivized a lot of innovation in packages around React, in building things like React Native and all the cool stuff we've done with the web since. Separately, it disincentivized the creation of new frameworks. There are two different ways to see this, and I think it's important that we see it both ways. I'm going to delete the other parts so we can look at this just as the whole. Let's say that React solved 90% of the problems and left 10%, but also introduced a little bit more. Let's say it introduced another 5% of issues. That's still 15 over 90. Things are significantly better than they were before here, obviously. But if we compare this to just building from scratch pre-Ajax, the vast majority of the problems the vast majority of developers will hit are less so problems with React. There are two ways to look at this. Way one, OMG, the problems are all solved. That's awesome. We don't have to care as much anymore, which is a good way of handling this. It's a weird analogy, but I had horrible skin for the majority of my life. And I would put tons of work in to make it not seem like I had terrible skin. If I only had 1 or 2 zits every few weeks, I wouldn't give a shit. But since I had much worse skin than that, it constantly haunted me. And I got to the point where I was down to this last 10% with all of my crazy attempts to reduce the problems in my breakouts with my skin, the insane amount of effort I put in trying different products, being really involved in the subreddits for skincare stuff, managed to remove 90% of my acne. But that actually had a weird side effect. It made me care about what was left significantly more. By reducing the majority of my acne, suddenly this last 10%, as well as the sensitivity of my skin, which is this additional 5, bothered me way more. Because I had put so much effort in to fighting this 90%, I was overinvested the 10%. I call this the we're so close to perfect problem. If you put the effort in to reduce the size of the problem area, you end up way more sensitive to what's left. If you put an absurd amount of effort in to make your skin healthy and you're this close, you end up just wanting to finish it out. You made it 90% of the way. Can we just make it 100? This is why I did the scary health thing that I haven't talked about much before. It's a weird place to bring it up, but whatever. I did Accutane last year. It's one of the best things I ever did for myself. Yes, when I was about to turn 30, I finally decided to take a thing I should have when I was 15 but was scared, and it's changed my life. I feel so much better as a result. Now that I have almost entirely cleared up my skin issues, I just am a happier person, way more confident, just better. One of the reasons you've probably noticed me feeling better and posting more and just generally being more positive is because I finally fixed a little bit of my skin issue that remained. If we look at this problem space as performance instead of problems, Bun has solved a significant portion of the performance issues that many people have with JavaScript, especially on the server side. That's kind of all it really does. So they've optimized the shit out of a ton of things, which you'd think would be a good time to tap out, to be like, oh, awesome, we did it. But instead, what happens often is the opposite. You end up staring at this last 10%, just desperately wanting it to be fixed. I know this has been really tough for Ryan Carniato, for example, because Solid.js flies. It's so fast. But when he sees improvements happening in React, on one hand, it's cool because he sees it getting closer and closer to solved, so to speak. But as it gets closer to the edge, it doesn't get cooler for him. It gets more frustrating for him. If React solved 80% of the problems he cared about, he'd be like, yeah, cool, that's awesome. But when React solves 95% of the problems he cares about, he's like, oh, he gets angry because he wants it to be 100. The closer you get to done, the closer you get to solving the space, the more frustrating it gets. And as the team at Bun keeps pushing this line closer and closer to the end, the things that are left get more and more frustrating. One of those things is database calls. It turns out if your database logic is in JavaScript, but your connection is in something else, which it will be, there's a lot of back and forth that ends up making those things significantly slower. This is why they made their own Redis client. It's also why they're doing their own SQL client. There's two pieces. One is that Jared really wants to think of Bun like an alternative to Rails, where it has everything you need built in. The other side, the part that matters for this analogy, is the performance. He sees the perf gap between what he knows is possible writing in native code in Zig and what people using JavaScript are experiencing. And when you're spending all of this time polishing off every little bit of performance you can, you see this thing that you know is suboptimal. You're looking at the network traces, you're looking at the stack traces, you're trying to figure out everywhere in real apps that performance can be eked out. Where are the things that are the slowest on the side you can care about? Realistically speaking, the HTTP handshake and the back and forth is going to be as big as the savings here could be, unless you're running the Redis and the Bun instance on the same box. Not many will be doing. Regardless, when you see the traces and you know this is possible, it's hard to resist the urge to do it. Jared's two goals are Rails, but JS, and make everything as fast as possible. The reason that there is multiple database clients now built into Bun is these two things. He wants Bun to have this all-inclusive, you just install Bun and have almost everything you need, eventually. And he wants to make everything as fast as possible. So when he stares at the surface area for why things are slow, and he sees a thing he knows could be faster, he can't help himself. He just does it. That's who Jared is as a person. And I don't think we can stop him from that. What I hope we can do is steer him towards things that are more useful to us as an ecosystem, and I and hopefully some of you guys will help with making this happen. But for now, when he has the opportunity to do a 8x speed improvement, or with Postgres 2x faster, which is pretty nuts as well, like you get why he's doing it. He really wants to take these things that are known to be slow and make them faster. 5 to 6 times faster than WebSockets built into Node. double the speed when you're using Express, twice as fast when you're using their Postgres built-in. You can see why he wants to do this. It's who he is as a person. He wants the performance. Tangent done. Back to the key pieces. What they added. Here's the actual Bun 1.3 update. They touched on a lot of the stuff in the video, but we'll just go through it all piece by piece quick. The big thing they pushed with this release is the idea of Bun now being a full stack JS runtime. They really want Bun to have everything you need for the backend, the front end, the database, cookie management, routing, etc. So you can use just Bun and have a full stack experience, but also bring in the packages you like to use and have that work as well. It's been a lot of work to make this all fully compatible with tools like Next.js as well, and they've made a ton of progress there. This is something I definitely want to play with more, but we just need to get over all of the things that they launched. One of those things is front-end development. The web starts with HTML, and so does building front-end applications with Bun. You can now run HTML files directly with Bun. This one's really interesting. The way that they handle doing the Vite experience of having a bunch of packages, writing code, and just having it running in your browser with live updates is that you run the HTML file. And the HTML file will import some JS from somewhere in your project, and that local path import is enough for it to then run the bundler. Okay, they have the React template. I'll be a decent person and just use that. As tempting as it is to try and write it myself, default blank, cool. So here, with their basic template, I have this index.html, and it imports a script, frontend.tsx. Here's frontend.tsx. This is creating a React app. And if we go to the app.tsx file here, we can see the app that we are going to build. Bun run dev, spins up immediately, of course. Send a request to the backend and gets a response. How's it doing that, though? We have the API tester component here. Here we are. The index.tsx. This lets you serve different routes. We import the index.html file to be the / route. We also have API/hello, which has a get and a put, hello/name, same deal. That means if I want to break that button, I could change from bun-hot source/index.tsx to index.html. And now I have this bundled, but the route won't work because I don't have the route file set up. So I can run index.tsx, which is the TypeScript file that will handle the different routes so that I'm using Bun's routing by importing serve from Bun, which will serve HTML from an HTML file, or it will serve JSON responses like this. And I can switch it from that mode to just the HTML. I can literally just point it at the HTML file and it works, which is really cool. I haven't seen anybody else do that quite this elegantly. This also comes with hot reloading, finally, huge. HMR and fast refresh are great. Once you have this tech, it's really hard to live without it. I actually want to see how far this goes. That demo is really compelling. Let's try to replicate it ourselves. Toggle autosave, cool. That's pretty silly. That's fucked. Credit where it's due. You weren't watching because you just listen to my videos. I highly recommend watching for this. I have my editor set to autosave. I think it's an 8 millisecond interval. Each key press makes it in and changes instantaneously. Turning off autosave because the tools I build with usually don't have that level of speed. God, that's fucking insane. They also now have production bundles. Huge. What about full stack, though? Here's where things are. As they said with 1.2, they introduced HTML imports, and now the HTML imports will also work with the hot reloading and built-in routing. Serves come a lot further, where you can serve with HMR on in dev. You can also echo console logs from the browser to the terminal, which can be useful in a lot of annoying debugging states, like trying to figure out on mobile when you're on web, etc. This also helps a lot with cores because you have the backend and frontend running from the same place, which means they're on the same address, so it can hit everything fine, really convenient. One of the best cases for things like Next.js, as silly as it sounds, even if you're using it as an SPA, just having everything served from one place is super convenient. They also have parameterized and catch-all routes. They're dangerously close to becoming a router and backend framework, which is a scary space to be if I know anything from my time working with Express, working with Hano, working with Fastly, or is it Fastify? It's Fastify, right? Yeah, Fastify. This is made by a lot of the Express guys. It's what I use for most of my random one-off web servers. There's a lot of good options. Fighting them is not going to be fun, though. But it also means you get native benefits, so I get why they're doing it. Also, compiling full-stack apps to standalone executables. This is really, really cool. I've been abusing turning JavaScript projects into single files for a long time now. We'll run this command. Now I've bundled the index.html. And if I /my app, no, No, that should have worked. If I do the TSX. Cool, yeah. I just compiled it with that. Now I have a standalone runner. Don't know why that's not working with HTML. It should have, but whatever. I'm sure they'll fix it. Now, people are asking for the size of the runner once that's done. VLN Finder, 61 megs. So that's not a thing that's been optimized. Makes sense, though. Then we have Bun SQL, which is getting the huge update to include the additional options of MySQL and SQLite, as well as the tag template literals. Don't worry, I know this looks like it's vulnerable to SQL injection. It's not. Tag template literals are calling a string constructor function and checking each of these. This syntax in JavaScript where you do a variable function, whatever, and then immediately do a backtick to do a quote string. I'm going to do an and name does not equal Theo, just to make this example clearer. So what happens here is whenever you have a variable, this gets split. And you end up with this array, effectively. And then at the end, you have all of the variables we put in. And what the function is designed to do here is you go through each string, and then when there's a gap, you pull a variable off the variables. So when you're doing that pull to reconstruct this into the actual SQL string, you will sanitize it at that point. But that's how tag template literals work. They aren't just embedding a string before passing it to the function. They're a different way to define a function so that you can pass the values in and construct a string safely on the other side. They also put a SQL array here to help with Postgres' arrays. I hate arrays in SQL so much. So much. More Postgres enhancements, simple query protocol for multi-statement queries. You do that by calling .simple. This is my problem, is so much effort's being put into this that could be other things. This could be time spent fixing monorepos. SQLite got better. The Redis client's the big new one. They added their own Redis client. I've spent way too much time with Redis clients. Not saying it's not needed, just saying compatibility is going to be annoying. Then WebSocket improvements. WebSockets, on one hand, benefit from the help, but there's also UWebsocket. I love this library. This library is fucking insane. You'll notice it's a Node thing, but 90% of the code is C++ and 8% is C. UWebsocket fucking flies. This library is insane. Like, it's actually absurd how good UWebsocket is. Makes me care less about WebSockets in particular. Apparently, and I have heard this before, Bun is using a fork of UWebsocket under the hood. Makes sense. Since Zig and C play nice together, I understand why that would be the case. They improved the S3 stuff because, again, they built in S3 support. S3 support is a thing that does not mean people think it does. It's quite annoying, but yeah. You now create executables with the bun.build API, so you can, in Bun itself, write a custom script to create a custom output using Bun APIs. It's actually really cool to not have to do a bash script for build, just write it also in JavaScript and TypeScript. The thing I use Bun for the most is not package installs. It's me writing a random TypeScript file, like do work.ts, and I const some data equals await fetch, sure. Stuff like this, which I do all the time. Const output path equals, sure. I just want to get this data from GitHub. Bun run do work, done. This is more convenient than Bash is for me. It has been so nice. 98% of my use of Bun is writing a random TypeScript thing like this and just Bun running on it. I would guess that half or so of the time I'm using Bun, I don't even have a package JSON. I'm literally just telling it to run a random file. So being able to do that for a Bun project is very exciting. Code signing's been added. Cool, you can ship actual executables now. Curious to see how popular those cases get, but I'm excited to see where they go. JSX config, very cool. One scary thing is that the import source differing between Preact and React means that there will be some fragmentation between the different implementations of JSX. We'll see how that all goes. Package management changes. It's easier to work with monorepos. Yay. Centralized version management across monorepo packages with dependency catalogs. Define versions once and you root package JSON and reference them in workspace packages based on PNPM's catalog feature. Cool. Isolate installs are now the default. Good. You can still do hoisted, which some packages will need, but that's built in. The migration thing that they mentioned before is really cool as well. Security scanner, pretty cool as well. Of course, it's the socket security guys. Those guys are awesome. You can configure a scanner in the Bunfig. I still can't believe he used Bunfig, but he wouldn't use Buntime. Ooh, this is a really cool thing. Minimum release age. You won't install a package unless it's been out for a certain amount of time to trust that the community will get a package removed or send a safe update out after, so that you're not installing packages that are like compromised. You never want to be the first one to install an update, especially right now. Now you can intentionally delay them. That's really cool. Apparently PNPM has this too. Good to know. You can also do platform-specific deps by tagging -CPU and -OS and installs. Cool. Control workspace package linking behavior with link workspace packages. Good for CI. Yes. We have the new commands we talked about earlier. Testing and debugging improvements. This is huge. We worked closely with WebKit to add support for richer async stack traces in JSC. Previously, errors in async functions failed to preserve the async call trace. This will now preserve all of the calls here because foo calls bar calls baz awaits and then throws. Now you get the whole stack trace. And this was apparently a WebKit problem that they have merged up. From my chat with Jared, he was very surprised at how much WebKit and JSC has been willing to accept random PRs from the Bun team. They've supposedly been really nice to work with, which is an awesome thing to hear. Oh shit, one of the Bun maintainers is here too. They made their min release age cooler by having a stability check to not install a version that has a fix in a backout space. Interesting. Does this mean if a package is getting updated every 3 days and you have this set to 3 days that you'll never get an update though? So that's concerning if so. Only issue I could see with this. So the max age of 7.4 gives up stability check. Okay, good to know. Anyways, VS Code Test Explorer integration. This might sound small, but a fun fact about me. I made the move away from Sublime Text to VS Code because at Twitch, we had integrated so much of the test platform to the VS Code Explorer for tests that it made debugging and running tests comically easier than any other way to do it. So I made the move to VS Code just to have a better experience running the tests at Twitch, and obviously have been there for a while. As you can see, I'm running, cursor. Same difference, you get the idea. Concurrent testing is very, very fun as well. Bun test seems really good. I think people underrate how valuable this is. Let's do a quick quiz for y'all. You all know Vite. I'm sure most of you know Vitest. I'm gonna go check a number quick. And if you know the answer to the question I'm about to ask, don't answer. Vite gets 36.5 million installs per week for NPM numbers. So Vite does 36.5 million installs a week. How many installs a week do you think Vitest gets? The test library that's been around for significantly less time. Vite happened in 2021, and Vitest happened in, I believe, 2023, and it would have been late 23. It might have even been last year. But Vitest is still much newer. Vite works fine with other testing solutions. The numbers from chat so far, 6.9, come on, that's not even a joke anymore. 10 mil, 4 mil, at least 20, less than 3, 8. Seems like the majority of these options are under 10 mil. This blew me away when I saw it earlier. 16.5 mil weekly downloads. The funniest part here is the stars gap. This difference here says a lot. Vite does 36 mil weekly downloads. Vitest does 16.5 mil weekly downloads. It's a 2x difference there when it's like a 5x difference for stars for these same packages. The reason for this is because you and I, just working on side projects, are not affecting these numbers a whole lot. If you just npm install random things in your side projects, cool. But if you're shipping real software and you're running CI on every new commit, you're going to be hitting these things a lot more. The reason that these numbers are so close, the install numbers, and the stars are so separate, so it's a big gap there, is because stars measure hype, installs measure enterprise usage and CI. Vitest is essential to any real business using Vite at this point, which is why half of all Vite installs include Vitest. Makes sense when you think about it this way. I don't like requiring code cov, but I do like having easy to run tests, and Vitest is super useful. We actually use Vitest for our tests for T3 chat, even though we're not using Vite. So take it as you will. Vitest is a really good solution. Shout out to Antfu for all the hard work he put into it. Even if it won't get the stars it deserves on GitHub, it will get the installs it deserves. We'll talk more about Vite Plus in a minute, because there's a reason I pulled that up. Other than that, really just wanted to highlight how important testing is for real companies adopting these tools. Then there's test.serial to make specific tests sequential. So if you have certain tests you want to have run in order, there's a way to do that. You can also run them in a random order. Fun. And even with seeds. Well, this is too much testing stuff. I can't pretend to care that much. New matchers. Dope. What about APIs and standards? YAML support, awesome. Cookies. Interesting. You import cookie map. What do we do with that? Does not appear to be used in the sample. I'm not crazy. The example is not clear. Thank you, Alistair. Request.cookies is a cookie map. You don't need the import. Apparently, Axiom has been on Vitest for 2 years, and it's been on Vite for 1 week. You now consume readable streams with convenience methods. WebSockets are better. WASM streaming is very interesting. See standard compression, cool. Security improvements, more node compat, improvements to workers. I think that is most of it. Oh, more DX stuff, cool. Better TypeScript defaults, finally. You can control how deep console logs go. That's huge. I want that always to be at least 5, probably further than that. Type/bun will now auto-detect whether to use node or DOM types based on the project. Chaos, but fun. Bun options, environment variables, useful. Preload scripts and SQL optimization. Strip ANSI util. Again, this is like the addiction to fast. Like, you don't need strip ANSI to be built in. Is it way faster? Sure, but was it actually slow before? Meh. This is actually useful, though. Passing between workers being way faster is huge. And I know that this is a thing Jared thinks a lot about. Like, how do you make JavaScript properly concurrent and like parallel? You do it with workers, but you don't have a good way to share memory. I know he cares a lot and is trying to find good solutions there. Lots of other things got faster. And this is just the main change log. So there we are. Those are the changes. Good stuff. But now we have the last main piece. The future of Bun. The thing that is the title, the reason y'all are here. Where's Bun going? There are things that they have planned, and there are things I would like to steer them towards. The goal is, as I've said before, all-in-one JS ecosystem. So Rails, but for JS. There's a lot of pieces in here that are helping get there. The full stack runtime and effectively framework built in is a really big step in that direction. I don't think deploy was mentioned. Yeah, deploy was not mentioned in here. I know that was a thing that Jared was talking a lot about when we chatted. So that's one of the future pieces. I thought it would be now, but it's actually the future. Bun deploy. Your first thought's probably, oh, so they're going to build their own servers? That's what I thought. Is it like, oh, they're going to put that out? This is not a leak. Jared himself even said he wants more people to talk about it. This was at the talk. This was a thing that he has confirmed before. Apparently, I am the one revealing this information, even though I was almost certain it was public and it has been talked about in public settings before. Bun deploy. This is not what you might be thinking, and I see chat making suggestions here. This is not for releasing packages to NPM or JSR. This is not Bun introducing their own infrastructure. This is very specifically making it easier to bundle and deploy a Bun project in other places, like on Vercel, like on Netlify, like on Cloudflare, like on Heroku, like on Railway. Bun deploy is closer to an alternative to the Vercel build output API. If you're not familiar with the build output API, it's a thing Vercel made to make it easier for other frameworks to structure their outputs when you run the build or compile command so that Vercel can just take a bunch of JavaScript files and do the right thing with them. It's a standard format for your compiled full stack framework code, not for the framework itself, but for the code somebody builds with it that will allow for Vercel to just take the code and run the thing the way that makes sense. But that's very Vercel-y. Theoretically, it's an open standard. People could implement it on either side, but it is quite Vercelian. And one of the cool things that Bun is working on that is not a leak because it's all in your open source shit anyways, guys, is Bun deploy. This is not them introducing their own infra. It's them introducing a standard for the shape of the outputs and making it easier to consume as a platform like Vercel or like Railway or like Netlify. Notice I didn't say Cloudflare because Cloudflare works on top of V8 and Bun is an alternative to V8. As Guillermo just tweeted, this is already working on Vercel, which is really, really fun to see. Of course, Tom Leonard is tagged in here, the fluid compute king. Bun deploy is a very interesting thing because Bun deploy is pulling Bun closer to your actual production environments. I'm going to run a quick poll in chat. Do you use Bun? No. You just use Bun install. You also Bun run scripts. The third tier is you actually ship a full app in a production environment. I'll say, yes, run Bun in prod. Like, do you put Bun on a server is what that masked one is meant to be. This is interesting. I expected a much higher for just installs here. My audience is biased. Still, though, crazy split here. I use Bun install because it's stupid fast and uses symlinks instead of copying the packages, so it ends up being much faster and convenient if you have a shitload of projects on your computer. Yeah, I think a lot of people who were just using it for installs actually run some scripts with it now too, so I get it, but still a crazy split. More people in prod already than I expected. The reason I ask is because Bun deploy helps lower the barrier for actually using Bun in prod. Right now, my main clouds are Vercel and Cloudflare. Up until a few days ago, neither really supported Bun. Now, Vercel kind of does, but Cloudflare doesn't and probably won't. That doesn't mean I can't use Bun to bundle my apps that I then ship to Cloudflare. It just means Bun can't be the runtime for those apps. Bun deploy helps lower the barrier for adding Bun as a dependency in our server-side code, actually using Bun, the runtime in production work environments, makes that significantly easier, which is a very exciting thing because it means Bun can now be backing things that make money. If we go back to all of the companies that mentioned their use of Bun in that video, so Anthropic is using it as the runtime for Claude Code when you install it. Cursor uses it to manage their packages. Replit, not relevant. No one actually uses Replit. And we have Railway, which as I mentioned is like modern Heroku, make it way easier to deploy real code in the cloud. Like these guys a lot. Railway's been friends forever now. And they use Bun to run JavaScript functions so you can vibe code there or even ship the default JavaScript environment on Railway is Bun. So of these, Anthropic is not running this on a real server for a real workload. They are using it as a way to run their CLI faster on your computer. It's not actually making or saving the money. It's just the way they chose to do it. Cursor has reduced their CI bill a bit, but that's about it for Bun. Replit is Replit. They don't make money. They don't have real users. But Railway here, these guys are interesting. Let's think about how much value Bun is providing. Let's think about how much money is being backed effectively by Bun in these different scenarios. So Anthropic could move to Node. People would barely even notice. It would feel a little slower, but whatever. Cursor could move to NPM or PNPM for their package installs. Their CI will be a bit slower. Whatever. Replit could move and nothing changes because when you have 0 users, 0 times any change is still 0. Railway's interesting. In the video I watched earlier, Railway was the only company that had an actual number to share for how much money that customers are saving as a result of them using Bun. They said 60% reduction in server costs because it's running so much faster that the code doesn't have to run for as long. This means that for Railway, Bun is immediately providing real financial value. Railway is saving money for themselves and for their customers by using Bun. That means of these 4, Railway is the only company with a real financial dependency on Bun. To be clear, of these examples, there are others that probably do, but let's take this down a hypothetical. Let's say you've been using Bun so heavily and you're building such complex things that you're starting to run into problems with the stack tracing because you're trying to debug things. They called out in here that they made changes to JSC to fix the stack tracing for async workloads so that they could get better output errors. That's huge. That helps all of these companies. But we're not here to talk about helping all of the companies. We're here to talk about how the fuck do they ever make money? If these top 3 companies were to have problems that were complex enough that they considered not using Bun because they're hitting some weird edge case, for all of them, it would make sense to move. What will end up happening is they move, they trade one set of errors for another, realize everything sucks, go subscribe to Sentry, and then maybe come back to Bun, maybe don't. With Railway, they make it work because Railway would have to charge 2x more for their JavaScript customers if they have to move off of Bun. So if all of these top 3 move to Node and then pay Sentry to get better traces in their backend so they can see what goes wrong, Railway's the one that can't do that. And I would bet my ass that if Bun was charging for some fancy error management service on the back end to take their deeper traces and get that information into a dashboard that's useful to you, Railway would not only pay for it, they'd probably upsell it to customers on Bun's behalf. Sentry's a great company. Sentry makes a lot of money. Sentry regularly has to hire and consult with people who work on Node directly because they have to deeply integrate with Node because they have to give you errors for every layer that a thing can go wrong. If Bun made half as much money as Sentry does, Bun would be in a very, very good place. Right now, Bun makes 0 money. They don't charge for anything. And if Bun gets into your deployments more, there's a huge opportunity for them to find places to charge. And that's not just charging you for hosting. They could be charging you for errors and traces on the server side. They could be charging you for private support because you need things changed for your particular workloads. That could be selling isolates or custom runtimes that you can use alongside your deployment for specific things and needs. There's a lot of paths that you can charge for once you get your runtime onto servers, which is why their number one goal is and should be, how do we get developers to adopt Bun, not just for running their code base, not just for installing things on their machine, but for running real workloads in production, because that's where there is real money to be made. That's why Bun Deploy is a thing that they're working on, but I want to go a bit further. Here's where we get into the things that Jared might be mad at me for. Let's start bullying Jared a bit. Key point 1 before we go any further. Building Rails does not mean you make money. Building Rails means you have to go build things with Rails to make money. That's what DHH did. It's the hard truth. You do not win by default by being Rails for JS. I could go further on why you don't want to be Rails for JS, but I'm not going to because it doesn't really matter here. Point 2, AI's ruined the performance wars. When my average request on my service was 400 milliseconds, it wasn't. It's probably a lot closer to like 150, 200. But let's just say, for sake of argument, that my requests took 400 milliseconds. We'll say 100 ms of it is like database round trip stuff. 50 ms is in it, whatever. You split it however the fuck you want. Doesn't matter. Let's say that 150 ms of this is specifically like node code running. And Bun can reduce that 150 ms down to, I don't know, let's say 25 ms. Now you're cutting this 400 millisecond request down significantly. You've knocked this down to 275 milliseconds. That is a bit over half as much time for it to run. These are numbers I just made up on the spot, but I've seen results like this, if not better, by using Bun on specific workloads. When your average request was between 200 and 400 milliseconds, shaving off 100 milliseconds felt really good. Cutting a fourth to a half of the amount of time it took to respond to a request was great. It makes your costs cheaper, makes your users happier, it makes everything better. The world has changed. The requests that matter on my web service are not the ones that take 100 milliseconds or less to respond. Certainly not even the ones that take half a second or less to respond. The ones that matter take a lot longer now. They might take 200 ms to like init to get all the context about who the user is and whatnot. But the requests that matter on my service can take like 12 seconds now because we're running LLMs. LLMs don't respond in 400 milliseconds. They might send the first token in 100 milliseconds, but if you're cutting off time that exists in this range, like the init times, those barely matter anymore because they went from half your request to half your handshake. Now 100 millisecond difference doesn't I wouldn't feel it. If you cut 100 milliseconds off of the most important endpoint on T3 chat, which is /API/chat, if I could pay $10,000 to shave 100 milliseconds off every request on upload thing, I would do it without thinking twice. If I could pay $100 to shave 100 milliseconds off my requests for /API/chat, I'd think twice about it. So 100 milliseconds on top of 30 to 100 seconds sometimes barely fucking matters. And Bun's far from the only place getting hit with this reality. This has hurt Vercel more than almost anyone. Vercel's put like their entire business in reducing how much time it takes for a request to be responded. And now AI is all of the important requests, and it can take minutes to respond. This has just fully upended what we're optimizing for as full stack web developers. So on one hand, AI has destroyed the perf wars. We don't care about reducing our server-side costs by 20 to 50% and reducing our request time by 100 milliseconds. To be frank, our Vercel bill's probably $1 to $2,000. I haven't checked it in a bit. Our bill with Claude and Anthropic alone is like 40. All of our inference together is absurdly expensive. Our compute bill for like running our servers is 1/100th at most of our bill for actual inference. So these perf wins don't really feel like they matter as much anymore. But there are things that do matter here. This is where spicy point 3 comes in. The AI land grab should be Jared's only focus right now. A lot of things are changing because of AI. We suddenly have more people building more projects with more packages, so the need for good monorepo tools that are deterministic, reliable, well-documented, and AI-friendly is massive. If you can make the monorepo tooling set that makes it easy for me to have 5 packages in a vibe-coded shit show, that's a huge win. That is a massive, impossible to measure win. If you can become the default monorepo solution for these huge projects that are growing bigger every day, you just did what I was talking about before with like being the thing where the money happens massively. Everyone above this railway line could move off of Bun without much effort. But if you're using Bun as your monorepo tool, you effectively can't work on the project anymore without Bun. The thought of changing our monorepo tooling out right now makes me feel sick. So if you can make something better enough that we have to, we will never leave. But there's another thing here that is important. AI means devs are making less decisions about their tech stack. They go with what the AI picks, or they go with what they're already familiar with because they're less interested in changing. They're just going to let the AI take care of the work for them. But the code has to run somewhere. Bun should be the default runtime for AI code. We've established in many of my videos now that AI is much more effective if you let it write code to solve the problems that it needs to solve. I'm not just saying it writes code in your code base for your project. This can also be you're on ChatGPT and you ask it for information about the stock market. It can write code to parse that information and get better numbers. If you give an AI like 15 numbers and ask it to add them, it can try its best to hallucinate a solution, or it can write code, put the numbers in the code, and then give you the real answer. AI gets much smarter when you let it write code to solve problems, even with things like MCP. Check out my MCP was a mistake video if you want to better understand what I'm talking about here. There is a war going on as we speak for where our JavaScript code that AI is writing should be run. A lot of people are using Python for this. This is a fun set of complex problems because you have to sandbox this code safely. You have to run it quickly at low cost, handle all of the crazy errors and hallucinations the AI is going to have when it writes all of this random code. This is a massive opportunity for Bun. If Bun can be the default sandbox and default runtime for JavaScript code written by AI, so that if I'm using ChatGPT or T3 Chat or any of these other tools, and it writes JavaScript code, it needs to put it somewhere. It shouldn't be putting it in a random provider that just showed up to do this. It shouldn't be putting it on the Cloudflare worker sandbox thing. It should be putting it in Bun, because Bun is the best runtime. It is the most flexible, and it has the most opportunity to catch up right now. Do not let Node win, and certainly do not let Python win. None of these tools were built with the level of abstraction to do this. Bun kind of was, but it's also the most flexible. You can change this, Jared. You can make Bun the default solution for AI-generated code. We are quickly approaching a world where the majority of code being run isn't written by humans. We're already at the point where the majority of code written wasn't written by humans, but most of that code gets thrown away and disappears. If I send a message on T3 Chat, it goes through all of our steps, all of our servers, all of our code, and hits some percentage of the 30 to 50,000 lines of code we have there. But every single request someone does might generate some code that runs somewhere. If your request hits 10,000 lines of my code and generates 100 lines of new code, it only takes 100 requests before more AI-generated code is run than code that my team wrote has run. It is a very, very slippery slope that we're already on, where the future is the majority of executed code being written by LLMs. You should be where that code runs. If you want the majority of code to run through Bun, it should not be running on my machine, and it should not be deploying on Railway. It should be a service that I plug into my backend code, that I hand a string that is the code that the AI generated, and then it safely runs it really quickly and spits back a result. If you become the runtime for AI code, and at the same time become the workspace for large projects that are half vibe coded, half real work, you've just won both sides of this land grab, and you win by default as a result. So please, Jared, I beg you, give us the ultimate runtime for our AI vibe-coded slop, and give us a decent way to manage mono repos. I don't fucking care about your database connections anymore. I'm sorry. It's a good, noble effort you've put in there. It's time to win. This is how you win. That's all I got on this one. Hope that was a fun ending. This is quite a dive in, and I'm very happy with what Bun is doing, and I hope I can be even happier in the near future. Let me know what you guys think. And until next time, peace, nerds.